Okay, inshallah. We'll start with Surah Fatiha. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Welcome to another Muslim Town Hall. Again, we're doing a series on marriage. We've been having some powerful discussions. A few in our last Muslim Town Hall, and then we'll put those videos. We have a YouTube, so a lot of those the other Muslim Town Halls are on YouTube. We have to put some of the earlier ones as well. The stuff on COVID and Black males, and we will be getting those, the ones that we have to put on YouTube, so we can get it out and so on and so forth. I want to start with an ayat in the English meaning. This is in Surah Shura, and make consultation with them in your affairs. Allah is talking about Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and make counsel with them in their affairs. So when you have decided, then place your trust in Allah. Surely Allah loves those who trust in Allah. And another ayah, those who respond to their Lord, keep up their prayers, who consult amongst themselves and one another, and who give out to the poor part of what we have given them. So this is a shura. So this is a blessed occasion because we have an ashura. Not only are we we're talking amongst ourselves, but we're consulting each other. That's what Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did. That many of the decisions that came, a lot of those things came from others in the community. Not only just what the Prophet Muhammad said, which was good, but he asked others to consult in matters and so on and so forth. So this is something that we're doing. So it's this Muslim Town Hall is based on Shura. Today's topic is on marriage, and in particular marriage, youth and marriage. Just to share a personal thing. I was married young in college. I had just taken my shahada. I had just taken my shahada. In college. I think I was 21. And I was sort of not forced into marriage, but the brothers was like, man, you're a Muslim, you got to get married. So that although I was coming out the dunya, I was a college athlete, right? And it was difficult for me. So, but I jumped into it because it was the right thing to do as far as Islam. No, that marriage, alhamdulillah or mashallah, we got divorced, although we still helped take care of our daughter. But I learned a lot from marrying young as well. So we want to talk. First, we want to invite Tariq and his wife. Apologize for her name. I didn't say her name. But Tariq and his wife. Just to first give an introduction. Say it again. Sister? Kalima? Oh, Kalima. Okay. Yeah, I apologize. Kalima. Tariq and Sister Kalima, and there's some other people who are married and not married, right? We want to have a frank discussion about marriage, in particular being married young as well. So we want to, if you can just give an introduction on, if we don't have to get so personal, but how you met, what was your motivation to be married, as opposed to there's a lot of people are not married, younger, and so on and so forth. And again, marriage goes through ups and downs. No one's perfect. So if you want to share, how you guys met, and where was your motivation to get married, inshallah.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Salatu wassalam ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum. So
Thank you for the return of the greeting, Auntie Amelia. So, you know, we met pretty much shortly after I exited high school, or we both exited high school. We met actually at an Eid, but we also knew each other from social media at the time. And, you know, we decided that we were interested in each other, and we decided to court and pursue marriage. I think I can speak for myself. My personal desire to get married came from a number of sources, but primarily from my personal identification with faith, religion. Me wanting to be a decent, basic Muslim. That's personally what inspired me to get married at a young age, and and also seeing, I guess you could say, I had the ability to see my even though my parents were not married to each other, but I had the ability to see both my parents have long-term marriages and see, the family structure that came out of that. And as well as I was able to see my grandparents have a long-term marriage as well. So I had, even though I was more familiar with, I was familiar with bad examples in terms of the general community. I was personally familiar with, some stable, some healthy, some productive models, of course, even though they weren't perfect.
Assalamu alaikum. So for me, at the time, of course, we were young, and my father, he was moving to another state. So at the time, my biggest motivation was protection and stability. I didn't want to be, living alone or, subject to any other kind of threats, both spiritually and, physically. So that was, my biggest motivation at the time. Yeah, and then I think, of course, just seeking connection and those things. And that's pretty much it for me.
Alhamdulillah. So I would like to also, if you can expound on the atmosphere where, out of your friends and the Muslims that you know, were there other married couples? Were a lot of them not getting married? And was there that first, what was the dynamics with your, because we all have friends. We all have friends and so on and so forth. And do you see more of your friends or the youth, or just Muslims in general, getting married at your age? Like you say, you guys met, and you say you met in high school and you got married later after?
Yes. So for me, I don't think, I didn't have many friends who were getting married that were my age. Of course, I have two older sisters who, were a 2-year age gaps. So they were married at the time. So it was definitely nice having that support and that advice that I received from them. But as far as the rest of the people in my friend group, no, people were, struggling to find spouses, especially, young, who had the stability or just the, who wanted to do that, who wanted to be in a committed relationship and take on, that additional, stress, because it can be stressful, and that responsibility. Wasn't too many people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for myself, in general, no. There were some people like maybe after me, maybe from a high school perspective, I saw some people on social media getting married, but they weren't African-American people. But there was one marriage in the family that I think my brother got married a month before we got married. So that kind of was a process to help, I guess it made it easier for myself to get married because my brother was getting married a month prior.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah. So one more question, then I'm gonna open up to the community. But because you said your sister was married, and then your brother, and that was a big hindrance. I mean, help to the marriage. And did it help strengthen the marriage as far as your siblings being married?
Yeah, for me, absolutely. My sisters, they helped me through pretty much every stage of, during the engagement, of me getting to know him, of just navigating, things with my father and all of those things. And then after, in our first year of marriage, and even now, having them and their support, and because they're both still married as well, that has been a massive, really positive for me.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. There's I'm gonna come back because I have some other things for you. And then Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, "Oh, young men, young men, and also I'm sure spouses, if you're able to support a wife, get married." And there's another hadith about youth getting married. Verily, it lowers the gaze, guards chastity. Whoever is not able to do so, he must fast, as it will restrain his passions. And last thing before I go on, I'm gonna come back to you. And you said some of the stresses at the beginning, and what you can touch on some of the stressful things, because now you're adulthood, now you get married, right, and so on and so forth. There's bills, there's deen, there's all these other things is new. Touch on some of the stresses and how you sort of overcame it. And again, we're not perfect, so on and so forth. Marriage is a struggle. So and sometimes people, once we struggle in marriage, we're like, man, forget it. But the fact that we're moving through it and getting through it, the ups and the downs, then we learn so much from it. So just touch on some of the struggles or the stresses, as you put it, of being married young.
Bismillah. Yeah, so I think one of the primary things, I mean, the good thing about being married young is that, you're developing with the other person. A lot of times it's your first time experiencing a lot of different aspects of life with the other person. But you also you're going through a lot of those changes together, right? So you're seeing each other in a lot of different states. You're going to see your spouse in a state that they haven't seen themselves at yet, right? So that's so you both are figuring out new grounds together at the same time. So you're not always gonna you come into the relationship, and the whole time you're courting, you're not being fully honest in a lot of ways, right? Because you of course you there's a modesty there. You're not married to the person, and you have your performative self out there. But when you're living with somebody 24/7, especially going through the pandemic, so you're really around each other 24/7. So then you have to you have to be willing to adjust to your spouse, and also growing yourself. But I think that's the challenge. I think is when you're young, you have a lot of assumptions about the world, other people, and then you finally get up close enough to a person that's going to tell you how they really feel about things, and you have to live with that person, and you have to be willing to, either you're going to stay in your ego and say, you know what, I'm right, or you're going to be willing to say, consider somebody else's feelings, somebody else's habits, how somebody else desires to have their living space. You have to be willing to adjust to that. And then I would say 9 times out of 10, when you're dealing with somebody who's Muslim and trying to come from a Muslim perspective, 9 times out of 10 or 8 times out of 10, they're going to be telling you or asking from you things that are actually bringing you to being a better, inwardly Muslim, inwardly being a better Muslim, a better person, and outwardly as well, So I hope that was clear.
Yeah, mashallah. Sister, do you want to comment on the stresses of?
Yeah, I think, you know, one of the other things that maybe we don't like to talk about when we're encouraging young people getting married is the financial difficulties and the financial stress. When you're 18, 19, 20 years old and fresh out of high school, just getting, into college, you're usually not financially stable unless you like really come from wealth in your family. So understanding that, if you're getting married young, you're going to have to kind of tough it out in some instances, and learning to navigate some of the times where it's just a little bit more financially stressful, in the early years of our marriage. Yeah, just being patient, truly being patient with your situation and each other.
Yeah, and fully being an adult too. Yeah, it's a transition from, I think relationships period make you become more of an adult, whether you decide to get married at 40 or 50 or 18. You're gonna have to become an adult. When you have a child, you're gonna have to become more of an adult, and and it's a willingness to become an adult. Materially and also like emotionally in your relationship.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. Now, I really appreciate this. This is beautiful. I'm gonna come right back to you. I'm gonna go to my good friend Abdul Rahim. Abdul Rahim, if you want to expound on getting married, how long you've been married, and so on and so forth, and what was your motivation sort of get married young? Because I know when we knew each other, we all talk about that and so on and so forth. If you want to touch on it, inshallah, and the sister, inshallah.
Yeah. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Let's see. We've been married for 15 years
Subhanallah.
in December. Yeah. And we met online. I was pretty much in a state of a not good state. Kind of got to a point where I knew I really needed to get married, and I made dua, and Allah blessed me with this lovely sister. So alhamdulillah. Yeah, I think we communicated. She's from Morocco. We communicated for probably 2 years, just getting to know each other, talking about just everything you can possibly, things that, obviously there's physical attraction and spiritual, because a lot of people are all different. They have different views on Islam. And so we connected spiritually. I was alhamdulillah, in a place where I felt comfortable getting married. So I wasn't really young. In fact, I remember, Amir, your opening comment about you getting married young. I remember going to a conference from when we drove from Seattle to the Bay Area, and I think it was Hashim and your cousin and somebody else in the car asking me if I wanted to get married, and I think I was still in high school at the time, and I was like, no. I knew it's just I was not ready, but it's that Islamically, obviously, it's good to get married at a young age, and it's interesting. I don't know how old Tarek, you and your wife are, but getting married that young is definitely a different struggle, and I think that's the thing is there's no single path. It's kind of different for everybody, and everybody has these kind of different road to kind of getting to get married. But alhamdulillah, we relatively speaking, we've been married for 15 years. I feel blessed, and we have two children. So yeah, you want to say anything about?
Yeah, assalamu alaikum. So for me, I think I was when we met, maybe I was like around, I was at my last year of high school, maybe around 2019,
You were
20.
21, yeah.
Well, we got married when I was 21, I think.
Okay.
So it was around the time when I kind of started, because it was right when I decided to wear the hijab, and I was kind of reflecting on my life. And at first I hadn't had, all my friends were not like, none of my friends were married then, but I was like, I don't know how I thought about, just let me just go online and just put a profile. And that came out of nowhere. I was just testing, and I put a profile up there, and the next thing is, alhamdulillah, it wasn't too long after I put up my profile that we met, maybe like a couple months. Yeah, so subhanallah. And struggle wise, maybe like we kind of had, coming from different cultures, maybe was a little bit of a struggle at the beginning.
Kind of, but I'm actually surprised how.
Yeah, we got
how-
along
yeah.
pretty well. It helped that we talked for like a couple years before we actually got married, and before actually being together and living together. But alhamdulillah, we're blessed to have to be one of the success stories, having been met online. So alhamdulillah.
Yeah, it's kind of a crapshoot, I guess.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. No, it's a and that's a beautiful thing. And I'm gonna come back because I have a few more questions. Definitely, because I'm putting you as one of the features. But brother Ade, I think our brother Ade is here. Inshallah,
Assalamu alaikum.
if Khadija is working or not. But just talk about Ade. I knew Abdul Rahim in high school. I was Ade's teacher in high school, him and his wife. And from that the school fame that we had was all Muslims. Later on in time, what was it called? Basis at first? Yeah, Basis was at the beginning, Basis. Yeah, but I was Ade and Khadija, his wife's teacher. And similarly, Abdul Rahim as well. So you want to expound on, how long you guys been married, kids, and what was your motivation to get married young?
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you for having me here. Definitely appreciative. Reminds me of the events we used to have in Alameda with the marriage classes. I miss those. So we've been married 10 years. My motivation for being married was I didn't see a lot of, my friends' parents being married. But my parents were married. They all had me and my brothers and sisters by, one household, same mom and dad. So that was my main motivation for me to want to get married. And it's been beautiful. It's beauty and the beast, and has its moments, but you learn from them and you grow from them. We have 2 kids right now. One is 7, one's 2. And I would say a struggle we probably dealt with in the beginning was definitely being young. I was 23. Probably took my Shahada 7, 8 months before that. And I was explaining to my dad, like, hey, I want to get married. I'm about to get married. And it's different between his perspective and Khadijah's dad's perspective. And my dad was like, dude, you're only 23. You ain't got a lot of money. You need to have some money in your pocket. This, that. I'm like, it's not really that kind of. I mean, at back, my dad had a different response. When I had Khadijah's dad, Islam, and we said when we were going to get married, maybe like a couple months down the line, he was like, nah, y'all should be married in about 6 days. Like, don't even procrastinate, just get it done. And so that's simply where it is right now. And it's been beautiful. We're learning a lot. Did y'all hear that?
Muted. No, I'm muted, my bad. And also what the financial, like when the Target's wife mentioned the financial struggles and so on and so forth. how do you cope with some of the other pressures of life and as far as marriage, like financial and so on?
I think the best way that we go about that is just to, you know, have an understanding and look at it as like, I always say that marriage is never 50-50. You know, sometimes you guys are going to have to overlap and help each other in certain areas that I don't want to say one, I don't want to use the term fall off, but, you know, one may even fall short. I don't even want to say lacking, but one might fall short in one area. And as long as you both have that understanding to help each other out within each other's rights, then I think it's easier said than done, but those little reminders really help. Your mic is muted. It's still muted.
Yeah, my bad.
Yeah, I
I'm
can
on
hear you.
you can hear me now? Okay, I'm on my phone today.
Yeah, I can hear you.
So we're gonna open up to the community. I'm not sure because I know people's screens are off. If there are any, before we go to, if there are any other married couples that are on the line, I know a lot of the screens are off. You mind sharing? And if not, we're gonna open it up to any comments about getting married. If you've been married, and so on and so forth, young or old, or if you were older and then you got married young, just comment on your motivation. What was the motivation to get married? Then we're gonna go back to the some of the featured couples, inshallah. If anybody want to come in, any comments? Okay, so if there's not, hold it as well. Again, this is Shura. We want as much, again, and I want to also say there's a deal. I said, what's the deal? We keep it real. So in Shura, in Islam, it's not, everyone don't all disagree. It's not necessarily all peaches and cream. Remember those stories of sometimes the Shuras got heated in the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that Abu Bakr, they said one thing, Omar said another thing. So there's a lot of disagreements, but it all came out as shura. So whatever you want to ask questions and so on and so forth is good. So I want to bring up the question before in this second of children, and all three who just commented, all three of the couples that we talked to, talk about children and the difficulty. What was the marriage like? Obviously, before you had children, and then what was the adjustment once you had children? Being young, as well, and topple that with you're young. You want to go to movies, you want to do some things. How did you balance that? First you were married, now you have kids, and you're young now, balancing the kids, at a young age, as well. So, Tarek, you can start first, and then I'll go to Abdul Rahim, and then Ade. Go ahead.
So we had our first child, our own child, within the first year of our marriage. So we were very young parents. And at that point, we're still, learning each other, still getting to know each other. And then, you add a pregnancy to that. So young and not really knowing or having the tools to kind of navigate those emotions that come with pregnancy, and then, afterwards having a child. It was definitely a big change, especially because, maybe that wasn't necessarily in our plans to have a kid within the first year. So that added something else. But I do think that even with those stresses, that we learned so much and we grew so much because of that, that I wouldn't have necessarily changed that timeline.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, you know, you're gonna go through like some extreme stress, transformative stress. We both were in school at the time. So, they're very difficult pregnancy in terms of just, the struggles, illness that my wife had to go through. So it was, it was just like very brand new things that weren't necessarily prepared for. But I think we both were willing agents and just, trying to stay as positive as possible. But I think that, I think what's helped is, of course, family support, but then also just structure. Like, alhamdulillah, our daughter just recently started school this year, and she's going to the Isla Academy, a Muslim school that we have in LA. And so, when you have, I think, just communal things in place that are really supporting the family's needs, Muslim family needs, then that can allow for, because we didn't have babysitting or anything. So that, the nature of trying to have a routine when you have to, look after your child all day, is very difficult. So I think things are starting to feel normal, have started to feel normal once she got into school. So I think that, that probably, I don't know if this is directly answering the question, but, when you have, you can have children and definitely things will change, but the more of a support system that's in place that's directly structured to like benefit families in terms of each individual's needs and goals, then I think that things like, having children are like, they become more normal and easier, for everybody. And they wouldn't be as, we wouldn't have to talk about it like, oh, let's not have children, so much as we do now.
Alhamdulillah. Any other comments? No, I was saying that sometimes we, Allah said in Quran, do not fear, meaning that do not kill your children because of poverty. The shaitan threatens us with poverty, and that we don't know where even our children come with risk. So I remember one of my sons was born, and money opportunities just start coming from nowhere. I'm like, subhanallah. But that I can't, first I was like, yeah, I can, yeah, that's me. I'm getting, getting more established, but that's Allah blessing my son. So each child comes with risk. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes Allah will bless us with our children and so on and so forth. Definitely, if we keep going. Abdul Rahman, you want to, children in the transition from single, new marriage to having children, and any struggles, and how did you overcome those, and beauties as well?
Yeah, we have a struggle. I would just say I have a ton of respect. Were you both in college? You said you both were going to school?
Yes.
Okay, wow. I mean, to be young, have a child, and both be in school, I have a ton of respect for the two of you, because it is very difficult. And I also love hearing the variance, right? The difference in this. So I was a little bit older. My wife was in her early 20s. I was in my late 20s when we got married. We, for health reasons, and I guess I can share, but soon after we got married, my wife actually was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. So we weren't able to have, we had to deal with the health issues first. Didn't know if we were going to be able to have kids because of the treatment. But alhamdulillah, later on, after we finished with that, she graduated from Georgia Tech. So we had kind of a long span where it was just the two of us. And I think we had built up a good foundation to deal with children when we did. And I think for us, it that was our path. And that's just the kind of the way it worked out. And I think for us, that was very helpful to kind of build that bond together. And really, I think had my wife not gotten sick, we probably would have had children earlier, but that just wasn't our path, right? So it was definitely a struggle. And I think now we have two kids. My daughter, Sophia, she's 6, alhamdulillah, and Isa is 3. So yeah, do you?
Yeah, alhamdulillah. I agree that yeah, me getting sick has definitely, it brought us close together and made our marriage pretty strong, alhamdulillah. So by the time I went through treatment, chemo, all of that, and then alhamdulillah, I graduated school after that, and then I had my daughter. By the time we had the kids, we were pretty much very in a good place, but it's still difficult. Yeah, being parents is definitely it's not easy, but alhamdulillah, so far, I mean, they're still young, so we always talk about what's the next thing gonna be, but
Just this morning, we were talking about the cultural impacts. And actually, that's an interesting question too. I don't mean to like Amir if we have time, but like the cultural in the US, right? The whole thing is to really prolong marriage. In Islam, it's the opposite of that. So that's an interesting dynamic
yeah.
within itself. And then same thing with kids, the impact of culture and trying to raise your kids Muslim. That's like a whole nother conversation, but
Yeah.
you know, it's the same, you know, this struggle living in the West, right? And dealing with that culture and your kids is something that, you know,
It's just the things we dealt with or they're dealing with is much different than what we dealt with. So it's like a challenge in itself. But yeah, that was our path, I guess.
Alhamdulillah. Thanks for sharing it. And that's beautiful because when you're having, you brought up different things of, you know, getting through the struggle, being patient, and then transitioning, you know, all of that is, you know, just, and all of you talked about learning and growth. Ade, I just wanted to ask you about children. I think Ade is still on there. And the impact, the transition when you have, you know, not having children and that transition as well. So are they still on? Are they still here? Maybe he has it because I know he works as well. Okay, so I'm opening up the community. Any questions for the any of our couples in a sense from the community? Any comments as well? Okay, Sister Amila, go ahead, Sister.
Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm in the prayer room at our local bookstore, Sultana. Alhamdulillah. I'm preparing for a Umrah, inshallah. So you guys all keep me in your du'as.
Yeah,
Alhamdulillah. But first I want to say, alhamdulillah, I'm going to find these people so I can see their faces. Where are they at? Is Ade still online?
I think he probably came, you know, he works.
He had to go. But alhamdulillah, but I want to say to Kalima and Tariq and even Ade and Khadija, how proud I am of you as your spiritual auntie and you guys thugging it out and doing what Allah has prescribed for you to do and to maintain your chastity and to complete the other half of your deen at such a young age. As Kalima knows me very well, Tariq has come to know me, and I have 3 daughters. And I've told my daughters when they became a caliph, you know, if you feel a fever for the flavor of a Pringle, let's go talk to their parents because we're not doing no out of the box kind of stuff. And what I know is that it was not an easy conversation to have with other Muslim parents about our children getting married, because one of the things that was so important and still is so important to people is their education. So I'm going to use Tariq and Kalima as an example of getting married don't mean you can't go to school. You know, you can be married and go to school, you know, and so that whole concept. And so personally, I'm speaking to other parents who may have children who are moving in that direction, right? That is a conversation that needs to happen. They're not going to eat no more food married than they do not married. And so one of my children at 16 and a half, to a brother that she's known, that me and his mother knew each other before they were born. They were planning to get married, and he turned 18 the day before they were to get married. And his Muslim father convinced him not to get married an hour before the wedding because we might charge him with statutory rape or something, just some foolishness. It was going to mess up his football career and all of these things, right? And at the time, we didn't know. Right now, the young man is struggling. I'm glad he's not my son-in-law. I'm glad. Allah knew what he was doing, right? But just the fact that that the Muslim parents weren't supporting, right? Like that there wasn't support. That's very important. And one of the things that Kalima and Tariq and Khadijah and Ade had was support of the families. And that is so important. So without being long-winded, and I may come back and say something else later, but that is what I want to leave, just in case I get disconnected and to finish this, is that it's very important that we as parents of young people who are trying to live in a way of Allah and do what is best for their spiritual growth and development, that we support them. Because see, fornication is a sin. Divorce isn't. It's the most disliked halal, but it's not a sin. And so let's support them and give them, you know, the opportunity and the okay that you can live life and be married and be young. So inshallah, alhamdulillah, thank you for the opportunity. And again, I'm so proud of you guys, and you guys know I love you hecka much. Alhamdulillah.
Okay, mashallah. Any other comment before you go on? Any other comments? I know there's a lot of people on there. Any brothers been married? I mean, are married and want to comment about as well. Parents, what Sister Amila had talked about. So we'll definitely come back.
Yes, alaikum.
Alaikum salam, alhamdulillah.
Just want to co-sign what Sister Mila said, just in terms of marriage and young folks. I actually got married when I was 20. So 23 years. And so just the family support is crucial in terms of, you know, when you get married, it's not just you and that person. You know, it's that family and your family. So really just, you know, the importance of having everyone on the same page. And even if you're not on the same page, you know, staying out the way, you know, because I think for young folks, it's so hard to get married. And then even for sisters, you know, it's even harder, you know, and you'll hear, okay, yes, you have to marry a Muslim. But then, you know, sisters will say, well, see, I see all these brothers and they're not dealing with no Muslim, you know. And so I think in terms of young folks getting married, I think what you said, Brother Amir, just Allah's barakah will open up only in certain situations. And if you try to simply go by the ways of this world, it won't happen. You know what I mean? Like you won't take those steps that you need to take. Like the times that I was broke was when I wasn't married. You know what I mean? And so even telling young men, like, I don't think you can really be a man until you actually get married. That's just my personal opinion, because it's just different things that's going to make you grow. And I think marriage is so beautiful, and it's a protection, you know, for all of us, those individuals married, but also those families and those communities. But just, you know, getting married that young and also being a parent now, just really thinking about how do I support my own children, you know, in marriage, you know, getting an ADU in the back of the house, or just getting a house first, but just, you know, setting them up so it can be successful. Because I think a lot of times when we talk to youth, we want them to get married, but we don't support them throughout it. You know what I mean? It's like, go ahead and get married. I'm done, Kalas, but there's no support, be it monthly meetings with the family, or we're checking in, or, you know, my marriage gift to you is going to be pre-counseling. or certain things like that. So it's not just getting married, but like, how do we maintain healthy marriages? And have those conversations. And so, yes, women need Wali, but brothers, I feel like, need Walis too, and so just different things like that, I think, is important to maintain healthy marriages. And there's a distinct difference. And I think most of us should know that in terms of marriage. So I just wanted to say that.
Alhamdulillah. One more comment before we go back to the, appreciate it. I appreciate you. I think I'm Any other comments? Any other from the community?
There's some in the chat.
Okay, there's something. Let me see the chat. Okay, a few things from the chat. For all married couples with the increasing fast-paced nature of our society, how do you find time management? How you find time management to work, and increasing expectations for men and women in society today? Do you find this to create an additional challenge or obstacle, and how do you handle it? So, increasing expectations for men and women in our society. How do you handle that? If you want to answer that question or kind of comment, did you understand it? Tariq or Abdurrahim?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So in regards to the first part, yeah. So what I would say is just have something that a lot of cultures have this more so than I think day to day, or the vast majority of African American people who may not, be in certain socioeconomic levels, but they already have like visions for their children. So I think it's very important for somebody to have a life vision before they go get married. I think that's probably the most important thing anybody can have, and of course, Islam, for a Muslim, Islam is a part of that. But you have to have a life vision, a life plan, and Islam does help you to provide you with that. But you also have to have some cultural understanding, right? And I think marriage provides you with the ground to accomplish that. So no matter how fast-paced the nature of society is, by the time we get married, I think we should already have a certain type of life vision and be working towards it. If you don't have one, you should, if you consider getting married, you at least need to have some type of career focus, that allow you to, there are some career training that allow you to stabilize your family. And if you're in an extreme situation to where, hey, I'm just trying to get married because I'm trying to do the right thing, and I'm already in a situation to where if I don't do it, I'm not going to do the right thing. But then that has to be developed as a part of within the marriage, and I think in regards to increasing expectations for men and women, it depends on what you mean. But I think that it's difficult because we don't live in a time where the vast majority of people could, adopt just, one gender role in the household because of the economics if you're living in California. So that may be an aspect of what you're talking about. And then also there's a lot of different identity, either confusion or introduction of new ideas that sometimes seem very good. Or sometimes, they seem novel and they seem like they may be solutions. But I think that, I think both people, like I said, I think, having an Islam as a mission mindset, like that you want to establish a good life for your family and establish a means for them being able to live peacefully in this life and the next. I think if that's on both people's minds, then they'll adapt, and they'll use each other's expertise, and they'll help each other develop to do it. So it has to be some kind of, a commitment that's beyond oneself, and there has to be a love for that commitment in both people in this day and time, because there's not going to be for a lot of people, there's not going to be a normal set of circumstances that keeps marriages intact traditionally. So you kind of think you kind of, if you want to be married today, you kind of have to have a little bit of a mission mindset.
Alhamdulillah. Abdurrahim or Khalima, you want to any comment? Or Abdurrahim?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I think, being married is just, it's just a different struggle from being single, right? There are different things that you struggle with. And when I hear time management and that you have to, even when you're single, you have to be disciplined about pursuing your career and doing these types of things. And then marriage is just, it's a partnership and balancing that, your career aspirations with your relationship, and then also Dean, and trying to figure out all it's a constant struggle, right? And the benefit, obviously when you're married, is you have somebody to lean on and help you when you're under stress. And we all go through the ups and downs of life, and it helps with that struggle, right? You just have somebody to help out. So, and then increasing expectations. I take that as financial. Maybe I'm not, but again, like we've got a couple that started young and have gone through, both going through school together and being able to push each other to kind of get through school. I know my wife was very supportive of me. I was supportive of her, kind of going through school. And you push yourself to be better, not just in this life, right? But also spiritually push yourself to be better. And yes, I think as far as financial expectations, or just because the time that we live in, the norm is for two people to work, and then trying to balance a family. Again, it's raising your kids and making sure that you're there. It's a constant struggle. But I think if you're pushing each other to advance your career, then later in life, as your kids get older and your relationship matures, inshallah, you'll be in a better position to where maybe one can work potentially, and you can start making those decisions, right? Hey, we can take less money and one of us can work, if you have that option, right? It's just going through life together, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, well, definitely our decision was like, for when the kids were younger, we did for in our case, like we decided that it would be best if I stayed with them until they start going to school. And then I started working when they both are in school now. I guess it just depends on the situation. It's different for everybody, but we've been talking recently about certain like for our daughter, and we're talking about marriage and how we want to make sure she understands, like if you decide, we encourage her to do well in school, and we would support her in whatever decision she makes, but to understand that, if she wants to have, it's okay if you want to just, if you want to have a family, if you want to take care of your children and have kids early, and but it all depends on the couple.
And I think that goes to the expectations, right?
Yeah.
Like the expectation is that you get a good education, you're able to go to a good university so you can get a good job. But people, men and women, but especially women, right, they have the children, so you have to kind of make that, you have to talk about it and have that discussion, right? When is it that you want to get married, whether if it's you know, late high school or early college, whenever you meet that person, right? And
Extra speed.
anyway,
Yeah.
Go ahead. You finished?
yeah, no, I think
Okay, no, alhamdulillah. No, I appreciate it. So, that's my son in the background. So this other question, Tarek and Kalima, and then Abdurrahman and his wife, Dean. So the differences. So talk about, and then we'll open it up. Talk about when you come into your dean. Some people come in as new Muslims. Some people come in, you know, I have a different madhahib. I have a different way of, you know, how did you all deal with your dean, having your dean first bring you closer together, and practicing the dean together? And how did you deal with differences in your dean? You know, little nisma that has, you know, whatever, that you fuse it together, or, you know, tolerate each other's differences. So one is, how did your dean, you know, how do you guys practice the dean that help your marriage, and then also deal with the differences? So I'm going to say this, and I have to actually do Maghrib, and I'm going to come right back. So Abdul Rahim, you can answer, and his wife, you guys talk about that. And I should be back by then. If not, the next is communication.
There's another question too in the chat that maybe we can answer if you're not back by then.
Okay, yeah, do that. So I'll go ahead and finish the salat and be right back, and so talk about the dean, and then get to the things in the chat. Appreciate it. Okay, inshallah.
Yeah, I would encourage people to, as Muslims, you know that we're growing. The Quran encourages Iqra. That's the first command, but to not try to be more religious than you understand. I think a lot of times we become very, we have the energy or the spirit of being, you know, very enthusiastic about our religion, but we may be enthusiastic in ways that are not correct. So I would say, you know, especially for young people, to just have a very basic, you know, approach to their religion, their faith, make sure they're praying their prayers, dress modestly as possible, have correct beliefs, and, you know, do what you need to do to maintain your religion. But I think all the other differences, especially because of the time we live in, are kind of like, the word I want to use is superfluous, but it's almost unimportant, you know, especially if you're doing all the things that you're supposed to do to relate to being a you know, a prophetic Muslim male and a prophetic Muslim woman, you know, in our character, you know, regardless of, you know, do you pray with your hands folded? Do you pray, you know, does Maghrib come in at 7:05 or 7:10? I mean, these should be easily solvable issues for people. What do you think, brother Mike and sister?
I like, no, I agree with that. I mean, I guess so. Yeah. So the religious compatibility obviously is a huge thing, and somebody that's going to inspire you to better yourself, and just my own personality, right? I am put off by that. You know, your beard isn't long enough, and it's, you know, it's 2 centimeters short, and those kinds of things where people get caught up in the details. It actually, it's not that complicated, right? Islam is not meant to be that complicated. There's a lot of detail that can take a lifetime to figure out, and most of us are not going to get to that level. We're not scholars. It's kind of inspirational, and you know, for us, we have conversations around, hey, you know, let's start praying together more often, because the kids see it, right? Those are kind of where we're having those conversations to constantly better ourselves and talk about, you know, not just religion either, but, you know, world affairs and how that impacts our faith and stuff like that. And just talking about stuff on a regular basis, right? I mean, from a religious perspective, it was to me, it's the most important thing in a marriage, that you have the same general understanding of religion.
But we
of
did
Islam.
kind of like when we met, and we mentioned we met online, so we talked for a long time online, and that was for us like a very, it was a good chance for us to like share and know that we are compatible, like in our deen, because I think when you go online, you talk to a few people, and then you can quickly decide, oh, this is not what I don't want to be, this person is very, very either very strict, or so you finally find the person that you're compatible with, and then the more you talk, and we've talked for like a couple of years, for 2 years, and when that's when we decided, we want to get married. But then, yeah, when during marriage, there's things that you have to make decisions about together. I think making those decisions together, especially when you have kids, because now it's not just about you, but it's about your kids as well.
Yeah, when are we going to Umrah, right? With kids, and then you got to start having those conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
But you want to instill, the deen in your kids as well. So you want them to have. So you want to be a good role model. You want to do more charity with your kids. You want to, go volunteer. All these kinds of things that are important for our deen. And
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think having, the same or similar core beliefs and your understanding of Islam and having those practices are important. But as far as like minor differences, I don't think that that's necessarily important. I know Tarek and I, we had different upbringings. We grew around different, Islamic spaces, different Muslim spaces, I should say. And so I knew when we got married that there were some differences, but that stuff doesn't really matter. In the big picture, it's not significant. And I don't think those things impact how you raise your children or, those things like that.
Yeah, it's hard for me. I mean, I think a lot of times we try to, make sure our kids, we want to raise our family, our kids according to what we believe is the proper Islamic acculturation, or we might have back home cultures, or it may even be major religious differences. In my perspective, I'm a third generation Muslim, and maybe you could say like second generation, like totally Orthodox Muslim in the sense, a family who kind of went through the Orthodox experience. My grandparents kind of came into the Orthodox mosque a little bit later. That's the weird way to state it, but just basically a basic Black Sunni mosque. That's what my grandparents. But I grew up around a lot of different Muslims, Sunni, Shia, etc. But I think, like in the socio-political, socio-economic conditions that I'm seeing, we're trying to make our kids or pigeonhole our kids' religion. I don't think it's going to work for the vast majority of us. We don't have the resources to do that. So I think in my foundational experience, is more important that, especially young Black Muslim kids, just see good men and good women, practicing Tawheed together. That might not be everybody's concern. Maybe people are maybe different parts of their cultural development. But, that's my perspective. So you may even have major religious differences, and it may not be the most important thing, for your kids to see that, but it may be what the most important thing may be for your kids. You may have a Sunni and Shia marriage, but the most important thing maybe for your kids is just see a healthy and male-female relationship of people who worship God.
Yeah, I'd sorry I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I think that's a fair point, right? I mean, it's as long as you can have that relationship and it doesn't become confrontational or a friction point, then yeah, it's you know, it's as long as there's enough stress with marriage and kids and life that, you know, adding on top of that just adds complexity. But absolutely, like if it doesn't become a you know, if it's not a big deal, then yeah, you can certainly get past those things, or even have the even being having those conversations about those differences, right? And coming to understand them. So yeah, no, that's a great point. What was the other question?
Oh, for Tarek and Kalima, what was the most difficult obstacle you had to overcome as new parents?
I would say just finding ourselves again. When we first got married, Tarek's grandfather, he gave us some really good advice, and he told us that marriage is full of reintroductions, and throughout your marriage, you should consistently reintroduce yourselves to one another, because there's so many changes that you go through, and you know, further down the line, you're not the same person. You should hope you're not the same person, you know, that you were when you met or when you got married. You should hope for, you know, there's natural changes. So that advice, I think, really stuck with me. And after becoming parents, and I spent some time trying to be the person I was before I became a mother, which is not possible. This just, you're never going to be. So understanding and finding my new self as a mother, I think that was a really big thing to overcome. And then once I found myself, figuring out how to introduce that version of myself to him, and learning about him and his changes as a father, and how that impacted our relationship. And yeah, I think that was, for me, difficult to do initially.
Yeah, I think, for me, it's, it's where everything that you thought about, or, that you learned, you have to try to put into practice. You're immediately forced to put that into practice. For myself, it's, one thing, but I know for my wife, it was great because, her whole body is taken up by her child, even at 4 years old, very, your kids can be very needy. So it's learning how to truly live with another person you can't really say no to or wait to. You could try, but it's better that you don't, for your own personal stress, because kids gonna be hollering or whatever. So you kind of have to be a really personally scheduled person. And so it's just you're forced to adjust. So everything is, you're forced. The obstacle is the child in a sense, but it's a healthy obstacle, and it's an obstacle you have. And if you want to live a normal and healthy life, you have to adjust to. And you also have to realize you're not in entire control. You have to really trust Allah. All of your efforts, you can't. You should work towards certain outcomes, but your outcomes may not be what you want. So it's a combination of really doing. It's a paradox, really, of having to be totally responsible in one sense, or trying to be totally responsible, trying to be vigilant, and trying to have your own self-sufficiency and independency and good scheduling, while really depending and giving your heart towards the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, knowing that you all are in the under the care of the most merciful.
Alhamdulillah, mashallah. So we'll do one more question, and then we'll open it up for a little discussion. Decision making in Islam, so you hear different things. The man makes the decision, a lot of different things, right? But there has to be, you guys, I want to move over here. I want to buy this new couch, right? I want to spend this money. I want to do. So many, it's decisions within marriage. Do you all make that decision first? Together? And if it's okay, one gets the final say so, or whatever it may be, because there's a lot of decisions where our kids go to school, da 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 da. You know, so what's the decision making? And then what's some challenges around decision making? Khalima, you guys can go, and then I'm doing Raheem, Raheem and his wife. Yeah, go ahead. Decisions.
I think for us, it's just learning that we're better at, like, he might be better at making decisions in certain things, and I might be better at making decisions in other things, and not being so stuck in roles or our expectations, ideas of who should be making the decision on what, if that makes sense. Like, you know, there is no, I don't think there's we don't do like this, I have the final say. Like, there might be certain things that I just have more experience in or more knowledge about, and he might have those same things. So we are open to, like, if you know what you're doing, you make the decision in this. If you've done your research, if you know, then I'm leaving this to you. I trust you. I think we have enough trust for one another, and, you know, those things that we're okay with.
Yeah, that's,
handing the baton over to each other when necessary.
I think that's the general approach. I think there are, and there's going to be times of contention too. And, you know, so one person may be standing their ground a little bit more in a position. I think there are times, I think, at least in my own personal psychology, is like, okay, there are times where I'm going to have to put my metaphorical foot down on a certain issue. And I'm sure that there's times that she's like, no, I got to demand from you this particular issue. And I think that in order to do that, you have to really be highly selective about those moments. And you really shouldn't be doing it for your own personal nafs as much as you can. I think if in order to be effective and healthy, like for me, like it's difficult to give this general advice to people because we don't really have a very standard culture and how people are trained as men and as women. So it's like maybe in traditional societies, or people or men or in societies still that that have mimicked kind of the traditional way. Men have a certain training, women have a certain training. It's a lot easier to say, boom, you know, this is this here, and boom, this there. And unfortunately, American people don't generally have that. So you kind of have to just really try to be a person of good akhlaq and a person of good heart. And then we can maybe start to develop that culture as a people. But I think my advice to people in general is like, a male should try to be a compassionate protector of his family, the primary compassionate protector and provider of his family, of course, with his wife's assistance. And then I think inherently, you know, in many situations, a woman is going to be the primary nurturer and caregiver of her family, or if she has other social relations, then she's going to have that. Even if she doesn't have her own children, she's going to be like that for other women's children as well. So I think that those two dynamics can help, but I think that, you know, people have to be very careful of it being absolute, because you could make if you make it about it just being an absolute role, and it's not about your expertise or intelligence. You may think by virtue of you being a man or virtue of you being a woman that certain things are supposed to be a certain way, and it may not be like that in your certain circumstance, and you could really harm your family in the long term like that, just by thinking you should be making a decision devoid of wisdom.
Alhamdulillah, mashallah, yeah, great. Rahim?
Yeah. So I would say we're probably pretty similar to that. I mean, we obviously work through things and discuss things. There are certain things that I deal with just because it's my background, or I've dealt with it prior, and we've had that discussion, and there's comfort, you know, between us with that. And then there's certain things that, you know, she handles. So, I mean, yeah, I agree with that. It's really just figuring it out. For me, I don't think, again, everyone is different. You know, there's kind of, people are different. So there's different ways of coming, you know, of dealing with that together. But yeah, for us, it's more of, you know, us working through it together, having those conversations, like the kids going to Islamic school. right? When they got to a certain age, we sat down and we had that conversation around, okay, here's the culture that we live in. Here's our finances. Do we want to do this? And we sat and talked it through together. I don't even remember who brought it up or who pushed it. It did, do you?
I
Or
think we both made the decision.
yeah.
Mhm.
So I mean, yeah, you can't. I mean, I'm trying to think of,
An
maybe
example where
of
we didn't
where,
agree on something. Or,
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I agree with the sister that there's like things for us, like things that I just let you do because I can't even imagine having to deal with, like, for example, like the financial part. Like I don't have to worry about that, and I don't want to deal with that. But same thing with you. There's things that you don't have to worry about making decision when it comes to certain things I take care of. So
With the
yeah,
kids, where the kids are being, brought up in a certain way, taught a certain way. Yeah, I mean, yeah, yeah, it's a constant collaboration. Yeah, I know. Yeah,
and when there's times when we say something that we have to talk about, we just sit down and talk about it and both kind of make a decision, just like the having, put what school should we put the kids in, or for how long putting them in this school, and
that
is
too.
it,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm doing that.
Alhamdulillah. No, and it's beautiful because a lot what you're saying too. Both of you talked about trust. Trusting each other's decisions and trusting each other's ability. And I think that's one of the keys to marriage. Not all, like you said, not things are always one way. Some people have different expertise in certain areas, and to be able to trust that that's going to happen. Trust in different ways, and like Sue was saying, not to worry. Like, okay, I know he's gonna handle it. I'm not even worried about it, right? So that's one of the big things in collaborating. So it's definitely I appreciate these comments because this is good. Before I go on, there's our last marriage Muslim Town Hall. It's in the chat. They are on YouTube, and we're putting others on YouTube from the beginning. We're trying to get them together. So if you want to take that and look at the last one, and we'll be putting this out as well. So I want to open up before we move on. Open up to the community. This is the question for those who are not married. The question is, do you want to get married, and why is it difficult? Is it difficult to get married? What's the difficulties in getting married? Anybody want to talk about that on a personal level, or just what you see amongst brothers and sisters? What's the difficulty? Why aren't more young people getting married at younger ages as well? What's some of the things that's preventing that? And there's some of the challenges of getting married. If anybody want to talk about it from the community. Sister Zoe, I believe, go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Nowadays, I think there's a lot of people in the young community who aren't getting married for several reasons. And one being, I feel a lot of young people are carrying trauma that's not theirs. They've observed bad marriages and they just feel like it's difficult to get into a marriage now. So now they're just like, why should I get married when it's not a good thing for me? And there are some people who aren't getting married because of financial reasons, per se. There's also young people who aren't getting married just because they're not ready. They're not doing the work that they need to do on themselves to be able to get married. Some people say, I want to get married, but they don't have the tools to actually make a successful marriage work. A lot of people are invested in the day of the marriage, the glitz and the glamour, but for them to survive even the first year or like longer than that is really difficult for them because they have to put in the work and they don't want to work for that. That's why I think young people are getting married today. Well,
Okay.
there's more, but yeah.
Right, mashallah. Really, that's very profound. One thing that I thought about when you said that is when I counsel marriages, and whether you're old or young, and brothers say, "Man, I want to get married." I just can't wait till I get married. So I said, "Are you waiting to get married, or are you preparing to get married?" There's a difference. Waiting is just like but preparing is like the sister said, doing the work on yourself as well. And that's one thing I want to bring up too. And we'll go back to the future couples, if I might say. You brought up trauma, which is a whole nother thing. We're going to do some on mental health as well. Sister, you want to comment again? Go ahead. Oh, maybe it's that your hand was raised again, or so. Anyway, I'll go ahead. But trauma, meaning that sometimes we as husbands and wives, we dump our problems on our children. And we, as those who had parents that were married and had issues, whether divorce and stuff like that, which is another topic we're going to talk about later, that they dump a lot of issues. So when they're arguing and the woman says this about the man, and then he says this about the mother, and the kids are absorbing everything, or the woman cries in front of the children and talks while she's crying. They're just some examples that I've been through. And that dumps and makes the children feel. So like you said, there is a lot of trauma that's taking place that we can talk about. I'm gonna have both of you, both of the couples that's here, I think our day is still working, talk about a few things. Is there anybody else want to talk about the reason difficulty in marriage? They may want to get married, but don't get married. What's the some of the other difficulties? Why aren't people that you know getting married younger and stuff like that? Go ahead, Brother Ray. Brother Ray, are you muted? I'm not sure if you're muted. Ray? Brother, okay, Ray had his hand raised. I was calling, maybe he's muted. We can't hear. I'm not sure. Brother Ray? Okay.
Yes, assalamu alaikum, brother.
I'm sorry, brother. Go ahead.
Sorry about that. I had trouble getting myself unmuted.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, I appreciate you all having this discussion, because I think it's very important that we do talk about marriage. And I just wanted to add to, I'm all praises due, happily married. But I have to admit that I've been married before, and it took me a while to get married again. And because I experienced some trauma through marriage. But what I've seen as the primary cause of the trauma is we're in a society that has laws set up to pit the man against the woman. And because of the way the laws around family law in this country is set up, it puts the man in the family in jeopardy when marriages are entered under these laws. For example, there's a reason why in the Black community, there's so many situations where children are cut off from their father. This court system is designed to help the mother if she's dissatisfied with the man for any reason. It helps her to interfere with his relationship with their children. And that is highly detrimental to the child. It is so rampant in this country that there are millions of children who are cut off from their father's entire family. And so you have a situation set up where the father's contact with the children with the father is not based on whether or not that child wants to see the father or have a relationship with the father. It's based on how the mother feels. And that is not appropriate. And then you have the other situation that you see so many fathers are under child support situations where not only are they put in a situation where they have to pay child support more than what they can afford, the system sets up a situation where arrearages get set up and interest is added on to the amount of that child support that does not go to the mother. It goes to child support system.
Right.
So these situations have caused many men in particular to not want to enter into marriage because they see too many situations where children are cut off from the father. Fathers are destroyed financially. And if anyone who has studied the way the system works can witness the heavy-handed approach that's taken to supposedly help the children and the mother receive support, does not work. It deliberately creates animosity and strife between the man and the woman. So
Right.
that's something I want to add to, and I think that's a situation that we need to explore further if we want to deal with the fact that so many young people do not want to get married.
Right. Yes, and we will have a let's just say she concur. Yeah, we'll definitely have a thing on marriage, but also once divorce happens, the taking care of children and courts and stuff like that, which is a different story. But we'll definitely be back and keep you posted. But that's definitely one of the reasons why things getting married. Go ahead. Can you guys want to touch on a few reasons why?
Just really quickly, I would say I think a solution to that. One, I think a fundamental solution to that is, of course, basic communication with somebody before just seeing their upbringing, and then also putting into your Islamic marriage contract, of course, how you would like things to go. I think I'm not an expert in family law in America, but I think that's something we have to explore as a community. To what extent can we interject on the basis of faith and contract, put forth a contract in the beginning of the marriage that has stipulations of, child, father, and motherly rights that are more in line with our religion, and also helpful and beneficial to co-parenting and the children in the long run. So I think the contract is an essential place. The marriage contract is an essential place for us going forward to solve some of those issues, and doing that in writing, for your Islamic, for yourself as an Islamic couple, but then also trying to qualify that in law. I don't know how possible that is, but I think it's important that we try to move forward in that direction.
Yes, and definitely go ahead, because we still want to stay on the topic of reasons why, because we will do a whole thing on that, because it's very important. It's hidden in the community as well, but reasons why preventing people from getting married. Go ahead, Abdul Rahim.
I was just going to bring it back. So I think that's definitely important, right? The legal, and then how Islamically, to make sure that stuff is covered. Because I definitely agree in this secular society that is an issue. It's a huge issue. I have one brother who's going through that now, and it's a disaster. I feel for him. But that's, to any young people, that's important if you're a sister or your brother, to vet the person and talk, because obviously from a religious perspective, a Muslim perspective, you understand the impact, right, on the children and the purpose of marriage and properly getting to know the person first, right, and having those conversations. And you don't know how things are going to work out, right? There's no, you don't know how things are going to work out, and you have to kind of trust in Allah and trust your judgment. Talk to people that know the person, however you want to do that. Their brothers, their sisters, their families. I think it's been said, right, the importance of getting to know the family member. You're not just marrying the person. I love my wife's family. Me coming from an adopted family and not really having a relationship with my biological parents, right? That's a huge part of our relationship, right? So it's just because of that statement, I totally agree that it's true, but it's very important that you talk to the person, get to know them, and do the best you can, as far as getting married. You don't know how it's going to go, but and then the having the background of Islam and both partners having the understanding of Islam, how important the children are. Hopefully that can be kind of a shield with this kind of dynamic, right? That's happening, and it's very common in the US for sure. Anyway.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. Yusuf, go ahead, brother.
Assalamu alaikum, rahmatullahi barakatuh. I just wanted to start off by thanking the married couples for giving your insight. It was very powerful and humbling. And it actually, I feel like, spoke to the two concerns about problems with getting married nowadays that I feel like I did not hear in your guys' conversation. Alhamdulillah. So one is, I think, statistically speaking, for the past 50 to 60 years, work has increased, but wages have not increased, right? And so that's been a reality that a lot of people are uninformed about. And I think there's a lot of men that want to be providers, but it's just a lot difficult. But, it seems like with talking about it as a couple, that's a good response. But I feel like that's what a lot of people run into, men that want to be providers, but nobody wants to admit that, income's not rising to a livable wage. The second thing is that I think that social media, or I don't know how to say it, because I honestly am not on social media like that, but wanting to keep up an image of how your life is or how you want things to be. Again, very humble to hear both married couples. I don't know your guys' life, but I don't get that feeling. You guys are like, hey, we do what we can. We do the best we can. Alhamdulillah. But I feel like those are two things that I see: the wages not increasing, and so men not being able to compete or, prove, right? I can provide for you and multiple kids, whether I want to or not. And then also, well, if we're living like this, how are we going to post it? So, alhamdulillah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, alhamdulillah. Yeah, I pretty appreciate that. One last comment before we go on to the next question. And again, really, this is honoring, some of the other couples couldn't make it, but honoring our marriage, honoring our people who are married in general, but specifically young marriages, that may Allah bless all of us, our marriages, may Allah bless the young marriages and protect us, and also for us to get married. And one of the things I think this little time we have is choosing the right spouse. I have both couples that are here. I think, I'm not sure if they came back. And then we'll go open up to the community of choosing the right spouse. How did, the hadith that we all know, you marry a woman for a person for three things. One is beauty, and then the other was wealth, and in other words, Dean, or maybe it's 4, and Dean is the best, right? And they say, well, just marry for Dean, but you do have to be attracted to that person. You do have to have some type of financial security. But I think the final thing is Dean. So some people look at the hadith as, okay, we don't have to be compatible or whatever. It's just about our Dean, right? So and then Allah also says Allah puts muwadda. Muwadda is a special love between you. So people are like, man, you got to choose the right one, and this is how you choose. First, how did you guys know that that was the one for you? You know, I'll have Abdul Rahim and his wife go first. Since I apologize, what's your name? I forgot. I apologize if I keep saying Abdul Rahim's wife.
Oh, it's Fedwa.
Fedwa. So Abdul Rahim and Fedwa, you guys can go first. Just choosing the spouse first. How did you guys choose? How did you know each other was the one? And advice for choosing a spouse. And then Tarek, and then we're gonna open it up.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was, early on. I think and in getting to know each other, I was really picking at the spiritual aspect, because it's the only thing that really lasts, right? We all age and get older. Money can come and go, right? But if I worked at Chipotle, this sister would still be married to me, right? Nothing against anybody that works at Chipotle, but it's just my point, right? It's that to me is the absolute most important thing. So I mean, this whole thing is just a temporary journey to get us where we want to be, and you want to have somebody by your side that's going to help you get there. And I mean, that's to me, it's that simple. But yeah, I mean, with us specifically, again, everyone is different. Our journey was being remote, so the way we got to know each other was talking a lot, and then we talked about everything. We talked about everything from everything from polygamy to or finances, what her career goal was, how many children we want. I mean, all of that stuff. You just get all of that stuff out. Yeah, but for me, the religion was the most important thing.
Yeah, I think it's many things, but one of the thing was how family is very important to me, and how you were very good to great with my family. So I saw how you were and that was something that was very important to me. And then I guess, yeah, the Dean, definitely, that was like the number one, the thing that brought us together, or that's what we the number one reason why we end up getting married. But yeah, family was number one for me, and he seemed to be a very family guy. He seemed to, like, coming from, like, I mean, you mentioned you were like even though you were like adopted and everything, but seeing how with your friends and family, and how you were very family oriented in that way.
And Amir Taiba helped.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Her father, right? Or talking to her father, and there's this white guy that says he's Muslim trying to marry his daughter, and yeah, so Taiba was but this goes to the earlier conversation, right? Of getting family involved and talking about all these things. And again, it's like you're marrying the person, but you're marrying into the family and becoming a part of their life. So yeah, anyway.
Alhamdulillah. No, that's true. Tarek, Khalil?
Yeah, I think Yusuf, he brought up a good point about social media. And I think that social media has a really big impact, much greater than we might realize. It creates this illusion of endless options. And I know a lot of times we're driven by these images of what we think is the ideal partner or the ideal marriage. So I think letting go of the stuff we see or, what we might think is best, and really holding on to qualities that are lasting, that extend beyond, a 5-second clip or a photo. Family is just so important. When you get married at any age, anytime, there's this anxiety or this uncertainty, like, is this person right? And I think after I met Tarek's family, even though like prior to that, I was like, of course, you're a little uncertain, but after I met his family, I was like, this will work, because when you have people and you have family in your corner who are rooting for you, who are supporting you, who want your marriage to succeed, and who are there to make sure that you have those tools and you have those things, I think that is really, really important. And I would say is one of the most important things. And, finding the right spouse is their family, you think that?
Yeah, how do you pick the perfect spouse or the right spouse? Yeah, I think those general guidelines, there's your general guidelines, and you want to follow all the general guidelines. You definitely have to make istikhara, really that's an extremely important thing, is really asking for that divine guidance, asking Allah to open the door if it's going to be successful, and to close it shut, and allow Allah for your heart to be content. But I think that, I think it has to be, marriage has to be seen as an extension of you, and not necessarily the core of you. Your relationship is a relationship. It's not necessarily you. So I think that a person who is well balanced, and two well balanced people, even if they're not the most compatible people, in certain circumstances, if they have collective goals, then they may be able to work out. Because I'm not sure if everybody is going to be able to meet their. And I think this may have a lot of traditional settings. Not everybody's going to be able to meet their soulmate. But I think if there's two people, who are really working to be decent, balanced people, then your partner, it may matter less. Alhamdulillah, I feel blessed to be able to meet the person who I think was the right person. But you're not always going to get that, But I think that any marriage, I think a marriage that has the right Islamic elements in it, and it's balanced and it's healthy, even if it ends, it doesn't have to be traumatic, So I think that's, I would say, for me, I got a sense that I had the right partner for a number of different reasons, Maybe a dream, my heart, something just seemed right. And then, a lot of different key factors of my wife's personality. But I think that, a lot of times we may be looking for the perfect partner, and sometimes people, they might not feel that, but in the first year, they might not feel that in the second year, but maybe they feel that in the 5th year, So, and Allahu Alam, but I think that what's just as important as finding the right partner is just really just focusing on yourself and bettering yourself, and making sure your person is not providing trauma to your partner,
Alhamdulillah. And also just open up to the community, choosing the right spouse. You might want to comment. Again, think Abdul Rahim, you had met your wife online. You guys met together online. Tarek, Kalima said they were in high school. So it's different ways. So anybody want to comment? Meeting, what's the choosing the right spouse? How do you meet? Know that person is right for you. Anybody want to comment, inshallah, from the community? Anybody? Okay, Sister Amila.
All right, alhamdulillah. So one of the things that I want to is to use the community, right? To be the community. I remember I remember Tariq coming to me when he found out that Kalima, that I'm Auntie Mila to Kalima, and he came to me and he was like, and I had been seeing Tariq, right? And he was like, I met this sister, and and I found out like her dad, right? and and but just knowing that it is a community affair, that it's a village thing, right? And that we aid. And if we see young people that be like, okay, don't be like, no, she need to get married. You ain't got a job yet. You ain't doing this. You still in school. But really support, like as a community, not just their parents, but as a community, encourage marriage. Just like we encourage them to go get those degrees, encourage them in that degree of dean. You know what I mean? So just being encouraging, as a community, and being willing to like even see, like, I just had a conversation with two different parents, like, so we looking at other young men in the community, like, okay, for their daughter and who we know, like, be active in this, in growing our community and strengthening our community with marriages and family.
Alhamdulillah. Anybody else? Yeah, definitely the support is there. And I want to say this before we leave. As far as the Muslim Town Hall, United Muslim Brotherhood, me and Brother Jihad is trying to spearhead that those who wants to get married, will definitely help financially, right? We taking responsibility to, as far as counseling, different Muslim imams does counseling, but don't feel that you're financially, I'll have this, I can't get married, that you do have support. Definitely reach out to me personally, Brother Jihad and others as well, because one thing of zakat, one of the categories of zakat is new marriages. That money in our community is supposed to be going to supporting new marriages. So we're trying to set up a little fund to help new marriages, those who want to get married, and once they get married, have some financial support and some counseling support as well. Zoe, you can go ahead.
Salam. Excuse me, I have a question. A lot of the couples talked about family. Family is really important. I know this, but okay, let me use myself as an example. I'm from a non-Muslim background. My parents are non-Muslim, so they when you're trying to court someone Islamically, because my parents don't understand anything, and they probably wouldn't support the process as if I had Muslim parents. Well, and sometimes nowadays, even Muslim parents are not really supportive through the courting process. I wanted to ask, how do you navigate this? Like, without stepping on people's toes?
Alhamdulillah. I can say something to it, but Tariq or Kalima, or go ahead.
I think that you can't fully stepping on people's toes, or at least making people uncomfortable, especially when they, even if people disagree with you, you're gonna step on some toes. I think it's just trying to reduce harm as much as possible and be respectful, and just like the Quran says, when dealing with people of other faith, debate is not the best word, but have the discussion, a dialectic. And in some cases you could say debate in the best of ways. So I think that you can't fully avoid that, but I think it's just in the steps of doing what you need to do for yourself and your faith and what you truly believe in. Do it in the best of ways, and using the different tools to make that you have to make that decision, the spiritual tools, the cultural tools, personally vetting the person. So
and then I wanted to add,
if you don't have and there's a lot of people who don't have a strong Muslim support system, and that's okay. But I think, especially as women, we have to develop a support system of Muslim women. And so if you don't have that, I would say you should, make sure you're putting yourself in community spaces and really working towards developing a circle of trusted Muslim women who can assist you, whom you can confide in, who will look out for you, because marriage is just so much that goes into it. And it's so important for our well-being, for our safety, to have that circle of Muslim sisters who, will provide those things and assist us.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I come from a non-Muslim family. My parents didn't even come to my wedding, right? So I can definitely relate to that. And I would say what was just said is, obviously I have to do right what's for you. And then getting to know and talking to Muslims that, you've gotten to trust. I don't know exactly your situation, but, like I said to Amir, Taiba was somebody who I considered, she helped kind of bring me into Islam, and I looked at her like a mother, and she was a big part of helping me get married in a very unique situation. So find somebody, that you do trust and can help you do that, just like what was said. 100%. Yeah, agree.
Yes, and I just want to add too, again, the support, Allah said in Quran, innama mu'minuna ikhwa, that the believers are brothers and sisters. Is a plural that includes men and women. So we're brothers and sisters, uncles, aunties, right? Because Allah used the word ikhwa as far as brothers and family. So that means we have to treat each other like family. So definitely, sister, and everyone, just again, reaching out to the local imam. It could be someone you trust in the community, but that's, involve yourself, like we were saying, Kalima was saying, involve yourself in the community, but finding that support. And there should be, there's a lot of, I don't know, massages or masters you go to, but to help provide that. Okay. And provide that space as well. So definitely, if you can reach out to myself or others, another sister, to get some more resources as well. So inshallah, definitely. So last we have 1 minute, 30 seconds. Kalima and Tariq, any advice? One thing of advice, and then Abdurrahim as well.
I'm like, little brother, you trying to say something about some marriage advice?
He said he ready. He said after but he boo-boo, he got to be ready. You got to take your chance. Now, go ahead.
No, I would say, yeah, I think it like somebody asked my teacher, how do you get to heaven? He just said, take the means. Like, it seemed like it's no real trick to it, honestly. It's taking all of the means, like once you learn that there's a means to do something, and if there's not just one means, you really have to apply all the means, and this is a part of your personal development. Marriage is a place to where you can stabilize yourself, receive peace, and, really have the grounds to achieve higher purposes, higher goals. But yeah, stay prayed up, keep do it just steadily every day, refining and bettering yourself on the path to getting to know Allah and getting closer to Allah, trying to achieve paradise. All of this life is being Muslims. When we learn it more and we open up our hearts more, it starts to all make sense, and it starts to sound like we're having the same conversation over and over again, because its principles apply in so many different ways. So just keep putting one foot in front of the other every day. And if we mess up, make tawbah and, have a good opinion of Allah, that Allah is all merciful and forgiving.
Did you want to add anything?
Yeah, just a few key points. Support system, key. Also understanding that Allah is at the center of your relationship, not each other. So you don't want to place your entire existence or revolve your entire existence around your partner or around the role of being a wife or a husband. Allah is the center. Place aside your ego. Have patience, be merciful, extend the grace you would want extended to you onto your partner, and understand we're all flawed individuals and no one's perfect, no marriage is perfect. And as long as you work towards it, inshallah, Allah will bless you. And,
Alhamdulillah. Abdurrahman, Rahim, any final comments from you?
I think they summarized it pretty
Okay.
well. Yeah, it's just being consistent and improving yourself and working towards that goal, and making dua constantly with the intent. Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. Sister, like anything?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think putting Allah in the center it's a big one. It's just and having that goal of we here for period of time, and we want to make the best of it, but the goal is to be inshallah together in the next life, inshallah. So yeah.
Alhamdulillah. So we'll end there. May Allah bless everyone, all of the couples, the not having couples, future marriages, future children, that we can, may Allah allow us to be good Muslims and develop this family relationship that has, I always say, we talk about the Sahaba and the Tabi'een and the Tabi'een. That means generations. So Muslims are supposed to be generational. So their children and then their children, and we keep going, and we hand in the knowledge and the wealth and the marriage institution down to our children so they can continue it, inshallah. So we're in with Surah Asr. Thank you all again. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wal Asr. Inna al-insana lafi khusr. Illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihat. Wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. By the depletion of time, surely human beings that are lost, except those who believe, do good deeds, push each other to the truth, patience, and consistency. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Until next time, thank you so much.
Wa alaikum assalam
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
rahmatullah.